Devin Haney questions Ryan Garcia's superstar status. In a brand new tweet, Devin Haney says, if Ryan is such a big draw, let me say that again. If Ryan is such a big draw, if he's this big draw, why he only fought on pay-per-view once? Never before and never after. Why he couldn't sell out the last arena that he fought in. Now check out my previous video. Ryan Garcia basically said he's the A-side over Devin Haney. He said Devin Haney had his chance, and he says Devin Haney lost his chance. He's the A-side, and he says the problem is Devin Haney thought he was the A-side, and it was going to be Haney-Garcia instead of Garcia versus Haney. Now, I've been in the game for years. It made me an animal. There's rules to this. I wrote you a manual. I don't even understand why so many boxing fans want to even talk and belabor things that aren't happening. Ryan said point blank period, he's going a different route. Pulled the dagger straight out. No stringing people along. He says, me and Devin ain't fighting next. I told my team to reroute, and we're pursuing Rolly. But since y'all want to talk about it, let the boy Ego talk about it. I mean, it is what it is. They're not fighting next. So we can go back and forth on this and that. And it's like almost like boxing fans want to argue. I've already explained this in many details in my past videos. You guys got to subscribe to the channel for the latest and greatest. It's very easy to understand what's going on. We're talking about boxing, which is a business, whether you want to admit this or not. Devin Haney, he's doing great things for himself. He's moving, and, you know, fans are enjoying the journey. Ryan Garcia, he's bouncing back from a loss. This is business, period. It makes more sense for Ryan Garcia to fight against Rolly next. It's a more winnable fight for Ryan Garcia right now, or at least that's what most people feel. It's a stylistic banger. He's talking about doing it on May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, so it would be a bigger fight. But I keep telling you, this is a power move and a power play by Ryan Garcia. Some people are blaming Floyd Mayweather. I don't know what inspired this. It is a Mayweather-ish move, I will say that. Because when Canelo Alvarez announced that he would be fighting Gennady Golovkin,
Yeah, no, guys, hey, big dramas, punches, Kazakhstan.
right? When he said he was fighting Golovkin, right after that, Floyd Mayweather announced that he's fighting a bigger fight that particular year. I went to both, and that was Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. I'm not you thinking, who the f is that? You doof in none. Right? When Floyd announced that, it took all the focus away from Canelo Triple G, or a lot of it. You know, some people were like, oh, I still want to see Triple G more. But at the end of the day, it definitely impacted the fight. Like if Canelo Triple G was a standalone fight and there was nothing, no big super fight like Mayweather or Conor McGregor, which was a big fight, people are like, oh, this is a circus, and people try to bash it. But guess what? It did more pay-per-view sales than Canelo versus Golovkin, which did well. But that's the reality of it. Canelo and Triple G won did not outsell Mayweather, Conor McGregor. So this is kind of that same type of move from Ryan Garcia, which if you're Ryan Garcia, you're Ryan Garcia's team, it makes sense. I don't understand why people have such a hard time understanding this. Devin feels he's the A-side. He's like, I'm undisputed. I moved up and had a sharp performance, one-sided performance against the champion, Regis Prograis. He's entitled to feel that. No problem. But Ryan Garcia is like, yo, I'm the A-side. You have never done what me and Tank did, which is 1 million+ views. And Devin Haney, he's saying, oh, how come Ryan, if he's a big star, how come Ryan has never fought on pay-per-view before or after? Ryan already explained this. Ryan said that he chooses to not put every fight on pay-per-view because every fight is not pay-per-view worthy. He says it does need the right dance partner. So I'm not even mad at Ryan Garcia for that because that is true. I mean, you could put a bunch of fights on pay-per-view, but Devin and Regis Prograis was on pay-per-view. Ryan's claiming it did 35,000, but other boxing media as well as Leonard Ellaby said it did 50,000. So that could be a potential problem when you put a fight that's a good fight on pay-per-view. Like the build-up for Devin Haney and Regis Prograis was great. It was a fun time. The crowd was lit in the building, but that doesn't always translate to pay-per-view sales. This is, again, what we're talking about is the business of boxing. So therefore, a lot of people were saying like, oh, Devin and Regis would have been better on regular DAZN. They opted to push, Devin Haney on and Prograis on pay-per-view, and the numbers were whatever they were. But according to many sources, they weren't great numbers. 35,000, 55,000, take your pick, right? So that's that. So Devin Haney questioning why Ryan hasn't been on pay-per-view before or after, it's really irrelevant. The bottom line is he did a fight just last year within his last 2 fights. So it wasn't like he did a fight in the 80s, like 1987. He did a fight in 2023 that outsold any Devin Haney fight. It outsold any Canelo recent fight, right? Seeing that it did over 1 million. Canelo fought last year with Jermell Charlo, 2 undisputed champions in 2 different weight classes. And guess what? Ryan and Tank outsold that. So you got to give props to that. And he was a participant. So, of course, I told you this was going to be a problem with the negotiating because people are saying, oh, Devin's sharper and he's skilled. But that's not all the things that encompass making the A side. So I knew Ryan Garcia was going to have an ego. He was going to want to get paid fairly. He got people like Conor McGregor coming to his fights. And that's why another reason why I didn't expect for this fight with Devin Haney to happen next. Ryan is on his high horse because he has great numbers that even Devin Haney and other fighters haven't done, point blank, period. So as far as like, I'm not going to get into semantics. Ryan saying it should be Haney versus Garcia shouldn't be it. It should be Garcia Haney. I don't really agree with that because Devin Haney is the champion. But I mean, then again, it just depends on where you fashion these guys because Miguel Cotto wasn't a champion. And that's what I'm trying to tell y'all about the A side. Y'all don't know what y'all talking about. I'm the best in the business and it's not even close. This is history, boxing history. So it just depends on what you agree with. Ryan Garcia is like, yo, I did 1 million plus with Tank, and then he's not going to let that go. Cotto fought Martinez. Sergio Maravilla Martinez was the champion on HBO pay-per-view, but you see the flyer says Cotto versus Martinez. It doesn't say champion Martinez versus Cotto. So we've seen this before where Kovalev's the champion, but it says Canelo Kovalev. So it's not unheard of what Ryan Garcia is saying for the guy to be a champion and he not get the top billing. Case in point, you look at Devin Haney's last fight. Obviously, he was the A side over Prograis, who was the champion. So Devin wasn't a champion at the point in the new division, and it says Haney versus Prograis. So again, like I keep saying, this is all business, and the politics are fighters' egos and where they feel they're at and things like that, which creates tension in terms of making the fight. I told you these fights aren't as easy as you think just because you're like, oh, it's a clear cut, Devin's the A side. That's what you're saying, but Ryan doesn't feel that way. So therefore, he went a different direction. But again, like I keep saying, I think this is a power move strategically from Ryan Garcia. People are going to say, oh, Ryan's ducking and things like that, but it's a power move because no matter what you say, people are like, oh, I disagree with you, ego. No matter what anybody says in the comment section, you will watch Ryan and Rolly if they fight on Cinco de Mayo, period. Meanwhile, you got to look at the playing field. Who can Devin fight? His mandatory Sandor Martin? That's a solid fight for boxing fans, but that's not really a pay-per-view fight. And that's the power move that I think Ryan Garcia is trying to make. He's like, all right, you did 30,000, 35,000 pay-per-views. That's what Ryan Garcia is claiming. And then he's like, watch this move I do. I'm about to fight Rolly for a belt. then I come to the Devin Haney fight in the future. Now I have a bit more leverage if I could beat Rolly and get that belt. And Oscar De La Hoya tried to get in the way of this, and he was like, oh, the winner is fighting, the winner he thought was going to be O'Hara Davies, and he said O'Hara Davis is going to be the one to fight Rolly, but he just got slept, and I made a video about that. So guess what? O'Hara Davis got slept, so he's out the picture. Now you have a TGB. I'm keep telling you how the game goes. You got a TGB, aka PBC fighter, Barroso, who just knocked out and upset the Golden Boy fighter, right? So Barroso, now that he's with TGB, Tom Brown, which is with PBC, he may talk to Barroso, who's like 40 years old, and say, yo, take a back seat, sit this one out, allow us to fight Ryan Garcia versus Rolly, and then you get the winner. And Barroso might be cool with that because we know O'Hara Davis and his team, they were like, no, I'm not stepping aside. I'm going to, play spoiler and you have to fight me. But that was contingent on him winning, just like it was contingent on Deontay Wilder beating Joseph Parker to get the Joshua fight. That's why Joshua just bypassed him and moved on to Francis Ngannou because Wilder lost. So again, I'm explaining the business, and if you don't understand that, it's not because I didn't do an amazing job of explaining it to you. That's where we're at. So the bottom line is Devin Haney, I get it. He's feeling like I'm the man. I took the hard path. And he's saying like Ryan has never been on pay-per-view after Tank. But that's irrelevant because if they can pull the trigger on the Rolly fight, I truly believe that fight will be pay-per-view. Ryan Garcia, again, told you he's not going to put all of his fights on pay-per-view. But for the right fight, it will be pay-per-view, which is a smart play because now you don't have a bunch of sales history with weakened numbers by not fighting the right person in today's streaming society. So you don't have a bunch of like low pay-per-view numbers basically. And if you listen to Nipsey Hussle when he was alive, he said 50 Cent gave him that same kind of gem in the music business. He said, put out mixtape, get your buzz up. Don't create a sales history with album releases because then they'll use your first week numbers against you when it comes to making your deal. But if you have no sales history, they can't use it against you. So again, this is a business. Ryan Garcia is playing the business right in terms of his side because, like I said, people are going to complain, I don't want Rolly sucks and I don't want to see Ryan Rolly. But as soon as the cameras are rolling and they do a press conference, if that fight comes off, people will pay attention and people will watch. Mark this down. I have no doubt in my mind what I'm saying is the truth and it will happen. Mark this down. If Ryan fights Rolly, that's going to be a top 5, top 3 maybe boxing fights for this year. It's up there. But meanwhile, you look at the landscape, and the landscape is like, who would Devin Haney fight? Who? Because he already beat Regis. Definitely no need for a Regis Prograis rematch. Who's Devin going to fight? So that's the play here. So you got to understand this is chess, not checkers. Ryan is out here playing chess. Whether you like it, whether you're saying he's ducking and you criticize the move, he's told you. He said people are going to criticize now, but wait till you see what I do with Rolly. Now, if he can do what he's saying he's going to do to Rolly and he can beat him, then he becomes a champion. And then now he goes into a potential Barroso fight if Barroso has to be next, or maybe even a Devin Haney unification. But now he brings a belt to the equation. That gives him more leverage. He can be like, yo, look at my tank numbers. Look at my social media following. Plus, I'm a champion just like you a champion. Versus if he fights Devin Haney right now off rip, then Devin is going to feel like, hey, I'm farther ahead and I'm a champion. You're a challenger. So that's what it is. Business. Checkmate.